All right, welcome back, everyone, and welcome to this segment on the Divine Feminine, to be led by Melissa, Jackie, and all the Divine Feminine people we have here. So, ladies, take it away.
All right. Good morning, everyone. So wonderful to see all of you. Yesterday, I was interviewed by Sailesh Rao, Dr. Sailesh Rao. We talked about the role of art at this time and storytelling during this pandemic that we're all experiencing. And I had an amazing experience. I'm not a great public speaker. My vehicle of expression is visual art. It's not the spoken word. Because we're at this time on the planet, it's important for us to step up into zones that we're not comfortable in. And so I've taken on the role of being a speaker for Mother Earth because it's necessary. And I put on this beautiful shawl. It's also a blanket. And this was given to me when I was on the canoe journey with my Haida partner at that time. And I wore it yesterday. And what I realized is that the grandmothers, the ancestors surrounded me in this shawl. I felt held by them. And that was a really powerful experience. And it really makes me want to cry, actually. Because these generations of women and caregivers of Mother Earth were holding me and holding us in this place of caring for Mother Earth and loving Mother Earth. So that was a really powerful thing. The emotions are this overwhelmingness of just knowing you're in the right place at the right time, and that those spirits that we don't see are there present with us. So out of the conversation yesterday, I had been thinking, sorry, I'm going to back up. I had really been thinking a lot about, who am I now, and how do I use my art now, and what do I want to say now? And it's becoming clear to me more and more that this time of cocooning and going within is giving us all an opportunity to really explore that question. What are we here now? What's our purpose? And we got so busy and so active and distracted that I think we lost touch with that core of our essence and the core of what life is really all about, and the core of beingness rather than doingness. And I'm on a blog of an artist, and I just want to read you this because he wrote very well about what I have been thinking about. And I want to share this with all of you just as something to ponder. He says, "Dear artist, a childhood friend messaged, 'How's your creative process doing at this time?' And I replied that I hadn't heard a single complaint from an artist about self-isolation, myself included. What I'd noticed instead were artists experiencing a collective organic reassessment of what their work means and their art's purpose. I'd been reading about a guru who'd suggested that whoever we were before the pandemic would only be magnified during self-isolation. I thought perhaps the same could be said for our work, or maybe the crisis would instead crack open a global breakthrough in art. These breakthroughs can be total reinvention or a leap from the springboards we've been building." So I just wanted to explore that with all of you. It's certainly where I'm at. Like, the isolation hasn't disrupted me. Like, I have already been isolated as an artist. I go from home to my studio. I'm in my sacred space, or a sacred space, and I'm creative from there, and I'm very much working with the divine energy all the time. And artists are often reinventing themselves and often being tested and explore areas that make us not feel comfortable. You know, we go out of our comfort zone on a regular basis. Um, so I thought that was interesting. And what I've been noticing around me is that now that the initial shock of the pandemic is kind of softening, people are trying to go back to business as usual. I'm noticing more people out on the street without masks and getting close to each other again, which I thought is interesting. Some of the lads up the road from us who are landscapers, they just cannot put their power saws down, their power tools. And so this poor tree, it's a beautiful tree in the front yard, became their playground for a day when they cut it down. And I'm like, seriously? Can't you suspend for a day, a week, a month, 3 months, being busy and doing business as usual? So I want to play a little, I guess I'll call it a game with you all. I just have to change glasses because these are not my reading glasses, but my computer glasses. So if you want to write this down, that's fine. But I just want you to, there are 4 points, and I'm going to ask you to do an exercise. So the first one is to think about what you were doing before the lockdown. And then to re-see it in the context of today. And you don't have to do this all today. It's just something to think on moving forward. So look at what you were doing before lockdown and re-see it in the context of today. The second thing is, what is the overarching schemes or themes of the past 2 years of what you were doing, of your work? And see in that any clues of who you were already becoming today, or who you are becoming today, and what that means to other people around you and to humanity. If I'm going too fast, just signal, you know, thumb down or thumbs up. So the third thing is to ponder is there a corner or a place or an energy that will help push you to a new creative, spiritual, and or emotional place? A creative, spiritual, emotional, needs to the fore. So is there a corner, place, or energy that will push you to new creative, spiritual, and emotional, your needs to the fore? So your emotional, creative, spiritual needs to the fore. And fourth, is there yet another way or a new medium in which to tell a story you had not until now found? Or a story that's just arriving or has already arrived? And that's the question I'm asking myself. I'm at that spot right now. Is I'm in my studio. I've got all my materials around me that I've used for years. And I'm like, now what? And so I started working on a body of work, and I just put myself in this place of absolute knowing and faith. And I just let it rip. And it was really hard for a while because you know how we resist that, right? We resist change. We resist going into the unknown territory. We resist being bigger than life. We resist being brilliant because we're all geniuses, right? And we resist that. But I really am allowing myself now to come into that place as if today was my last day on earth. And so what am I going to do with this one day? You know, am I going to just waste it? And I'm not saying you have to be in an action mode to feel like you're wasting the day. You could just be meditating. You could be gardening. I'm not putting anything down as lesser than. But it's just the state of being that is important. It's your attitude, your state of mind, state of being. And so what I'm finding is this new story is being birthed out of me or through me and my creativity, which I have to give myself permission to allow it to happen. Okay, now I would ask you to list 5 themes or vibes that are part of this new place you're in. And once you've done that, connect to those 5 states, those 5 vibes, those 5 themes of being, or rather connect those 5 states of being to your old self and your old work. So for me, I would say resiliency is one of the words that comes to me. Faith, letting go or non-attachment, co-creativity. These are some of the states or themes. And now imagine those 5 vibes that are coming from you and having gone through this process of self-examination, and imagine them for a new world. Mayra?
That's Mayra.
Hi, Mayra.
Welcome, Mayra.
Bonjour.
Hi, good morning. How are you guys?
Great.
Nice. Nice to see you all.
Likewise.
Lovely to see you.
Great to all be together.
Yeah. We were just doing an exercise. I was talking about how this isolation is taking us all into a place of self-examination and self-awareness, and really rebirthing ourselves, or looking at new creative ways to be on the planet and how to share that with the world. And I just guided everyone through an exercise of exploring who we used to be and how we used to work, and what that's shaping into now, and how to create 5 new vibes. I'm just going to call them that, or states of being, and imagining those into this new world that we're all co-creating with the spirit and each other.
Beautiful.
Do you have this written down somewhere, Melissa, that you can maybe email us?
Yeah.
So that after this we can use it to contemplate? Because that was a lot, and I'm still like in the second question.
Okay. I wasn't
Beautiful question. Beautiful.
it all right now, you know. So I'm really into playing games right now, so I just want to go around. If you guys are down with that, if you are down with playing games, just thumbs up. And if you don't feel sure, or if you hate the idea, I'll skip you. Okay, so I just want to go around and just give me a word of how you're feeling right now. So how about you, Stephanie? If you don't mind me starting with you.
Yeah, that's no problem. I actually wrote, without even trying, I wrote 5 R words. And I don't know which one to pick.
Well, give us all 5 then. That's fine.
Well, I said the 5 themes and vibes are reflection, release, realization, revere, and regrounded.
Wow. Thank you. That's beautiful. And R. Wow.
Well, she's in Ireland. What do you expect?
That's great. Yeah, and just listening to your words, they tell a story, you know. There's a beginning, a middle, and then a conclusion, which is interesting, which is again a new beginning. You know, it's a never-ending loop. Love that. Jackie.
I didn't get to write down all the 5. This was heavy. I wasn't expecting this. I had to like get ready for it. But I think the one word that I feel empowered. That's what I'm feeling, empowered. That's the theme.
Yeah, beautiful. So just to re-clarify, you don't have to give me your 5 words from the exercise. I was just checking in with how you're feeling now after having listened to those thoughts, questions. That you're empowered is good. So it sounds like this re-examination or exploration of self in relation to the world is empowering you. That's what I got from what you were saying.
And I think it's also based on your other question when you asked about how this has changed us and how it reflects back on our work from the beginning. And it's almost like the word that shall remain unnamed has created a bridge for my work. And I think that's what it is. I couldn't see how to get from where I was to where I knew I wanted to be. And this situation has provided that beautiful fertile ground to get from there to here. So that's what's empowering me.
Wow. Beautiful. I love that. See, this is so helpful. Hearing all of your testimonials or your experiences, it helps each one of us to grow as well. Because we're all putting tools in each other's toolkits to use. James, did you get to hear all of that? I'd love to call on you for your word or words.
Yeah, I was listening. I was just sitting. I was making tea and doing other stuff, but I could hear everything. Yeah, I was actually sitting over there making my own list. I took down a list of what you were saying, and yeah, funny enough, because Stephanie went first and then Jackie went second, and both of them hit on 2 things that I kind of came up with as well. So I like my 5 would be 1, compassion, empathy, reflection, which was one of Stephanie's, vision, and spiritual came up for me as well. Like, so that would be in essence with Jackie as well.
Beautiful. Love it. So is that describing your state of being now? Your state of being from the past, present, future? What is needed in the world? I think, Jim, did you freeze up there? Okay. Well, it looks like James may have. Oh,
Sorry, I'm getting a phone call. Get called off.
okay. We'll come back to you. Emery, did you want to share something? Emery?
Yeah. The one word, I guess, is enlightenment. You know.
Beautiful. Wow. Wow. So what I'm thinking, I read, I think it was Carolyn Mace who talked about enlightenment, and she said that when we're born here, our light is fragmented, and little pieces of light go into different people's backpacks who you're supposed to meet and have relationships with and engage with. So one piece of your light could go with your best friend or your parent or your school, one of your teachers, or a partner, or someone you marry, or someone you work with. And as you go through life and have these relationships and experiences together, once you've concluded that relationship, you get that fragment of light back. And once you've concluded all the relationships that you came here to experience, and you've retrieved all your pieces of light, that's when you achieve enlightenment. And I really love this image, because in a way we're kind of all accelerating to that place of having gotten all our bits back, like all the puzzle pieces are coming together and clocking in, fitting in, and we're becoming whole, right? And on purpose. Emery, yeah.
I'm not saying that anything has been concluded for me. All my relationships are ongoing. They'll be ongoing right to the bitter end. So, but as far as enlightenment, I mean, enlightenment is an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
It's an eternal thing which will factor in at some point.
Well, I've also read that we're already enlightened, that we come here enlightened. So,
Well, I think we all will meditate on that.
Hey,
You
Miles.
know what I mean?
Oh, sorry.
We're in constant meditation, right? Just like enlightenment. We're already enlightened. Well, you know, we're already meditating all the time.
Thank you, Emery. Miles. Hi.
Hi. Yeah, so the word is synchronicity on many levels. The first synchronicity is when you were talking about the shawl. And I don't think I'll go into it because I'll probably get too choked up and I won't be able to speak. So I'll save that. Then the next synchronicity was the fact that you gave me this word vibe, because coincidentally, I'm working with trying to come up with 5 words that start with the letter V, which I won't also go into because it would take too long, but I could share the 5 V's if you want, but I know you just wanted one word that encapsulates things. So again, that's synchronicity.
Also, if you want to give us your 5 words, that's just fine. We have 2 hours here, so no hurry.
Okay. So the first V is villages. The second V of my 5 vibes is values. The third V is vitality. The fourth V is veritas, which is a word I shared with you, Melissa, yesterday with Dr. Rao's Corona Healers call-in, veritas. It's a very interesting word, and it's feminine, and it means truth. And then finally, the 5th V is vision. And as I said at the outset, believe it or not, I was looking for 5 words.
Wow.
And until you gave me the word vibe, it wasn't working for me, because I was trying to I was thinking values and 5 values, which wasn't working because there's really 7 values that I want to incorporate. So you've allowed me to do that now because I shifted to the word vibe. So thank you.
Awesome. Before you go, Miles, this is a suggestion. So this is a time when we're taking off our masks and revealing who we truly are. Funnily enough, we're also putting masks back on, which I find really interesting, to protect us from the coronavirus. And I don't know if any of you have been out and about, but Jamin and I went to Costco the other day, and people were wearing the most fabulous masks that were handmade, super creative, all different patterns and structures and, you know, ways of sewing them and hanging them. And I was like, wow, this is like going to an art show, you know, a mask show. That's really cool. So like the human creativity and inventiveness, you know, is really being stimulated at this time. And people have time, you know, again. I don't sew, unfortunately, but I'm going to try sewing one anyway. And I mean, that might be something we could all do for next week. Let's all make a mask, okay? You know, a coronavirus mask, but I want to take it a little further. So why don't we all make a mask that explores an animal that we have a connection with, or something we have a connection with? So anyway, just coming back to what I want to say, Miles, that you raised for me, is that this taking off our masks, what I mean is how we present ourselves to society. You know, how a lot of us, until we know who we are, you know, we try to fit into something, or we try to be something maybe we're not. You know, we give these pretenses. But now when we take off our mask, we're turning up as our authentic selves more and more. I think the coronavirus this isolation is also allowing us to get in touch with that core essence of who we are. And so I think sharing our vulnerabilities are really important. So that's why I allow myself to cry on camera. I would never have done that before. I would have choked it back. But I think it's so important what I had to share, which was revealed to me yesterday through this shawl that really brought something amazing that I could never have imagined, that in a garment could be contained this essence, this energy, this spirit of the grandmothers, of the ancestors, of the matriarch that are present here with all of us, whether we see them or feel them or not. And so by sharing our stories and being vulnerable, we're getting back in touch with our feeling realm, our feeling world, and we need to feel again. We need to be able to touch again, tactility. We're out of touch. We need to get back in touch with our hearts, with our feelings, in order to heal ourselves and in order to help the earth to heal. So I would love to hear your revelation about the shawl. It will help me maybe understand in another way my experience, if only if you wish. There's no pressure, of course, ever.
Yeah, definitely would like to share it, but I think I'll have to do it a little later.
Thank you, Miles. Love you. Mayra, would you like to share your word or words?
I feel very happy. Extremely happy.
That is the embodiment of you, I would say. Rayon de soleil, a ray of sunshine. Lauren, are you, would you like to contribute?
No, I'm just listening and cooking for now, which I really enjoy. And sorry, I ducked off the call. It just kind of kicked me out because of the connection.
No
Sorry.
problem.
Happy to be here.
Good to see
Welcome,
you.
welcome, Lauren, and feel free to jump in anytime.
I got Stephanie. See, Natalie, maybe are you? I think you're in the chat, right? Usually, Natalie. Let's see.
No, I don't think she's shared anything yet.
Okay.
She's muted.
Okay. Natalie, I don't know if you wanted to share your thoughts or a word with us. Okay. Does it look like it? So I'm going to, does anyone have any other comments about, the journey we've just, oh, J-Man, I'm so sorry. He's
What am I? What am I, like a piece of furniture, a house plant? Yeah?
Oh my goodness.
What is this? So first of all, I'm pissed off. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just a little bit of New York coming out there. I'm actually not from New York, but anyway. So I've got two kind of concepts, two sort of words. One's a combined word, and it's excitement combined with determination, right? And then the other is, in a sense, a little bit of an opposite. It's patience. I feel like I'm finally just patient and just ready to just go with the flow. So it's kind of this yin yang, right?
Beautiful. So what I get from that is being in a state of balance. It's when you're in the center of two polarities, hot, cold, agitated, patient. And again, I think that's where we're being called to find ourselves back in sacred balance, a space of sacred balance, sitting between polarities. Because then you can come to stillness. And when you come to stillness, that's where the all-knowing is. Yeah, Jackie, I'm going to pass the baton to you now for a while.
It's just while you were saying that, it made me think of how even in this conversation, how my word has already transformed into kind of like an awareness. And I think that that's more descriptive of how I'm feeling now, because being in this cocoon has given me the ability and the courage to observe, to truly just sit and take it in without judgment, without attachment, and observe my relationships, observe what's going on, just observe and be patient and learn. And there's an awareness that's coming, a natural awareness that's coming to me that's coming from a place of not judging, not predicting, you know, not being attached to the shoulds or the coulds, and just saying, just show me what is, allow me to be courageous enough to accept what is, and then give me the wisdom to interject myself with what is and meet what is and contribute to myself to what is. That to me is really, I don't think I could have gained that awareness and that perspective if I wasn't given this gift of just sit, be courageous, and just watch. Don't judge it, just watch it. What can we learn from this? And then organically allowing that I could watch my body interacting with the as is, and learning that discernment with this is me, this isn't me, what do I do with this? So it's given me incredible introspective ability, and also the courage to observe what is so that I can more effectively contribute instead of judging or attaching and the coulds and the shoulds and whys, and just what is. And I think that's the greatest gift. And with all the rushing around, that was a concept to me that was always trying to be just be in the as is, just be in the as is, just be present, just stop, just breathe. And it was a struggle. It was always a conscious decision, just stop, just stop. Where it's now, it's the ability to just be. So that's the beautiful thing. And I think that's why my word has been awareness, because it's affecting my art, affecting my speaking, and affecting my writing. It's this new awareness that I've gained.
I can breathe that in, you know, like I'm having a different experience now of what everyone is sharing. I'm not just hearing it, like I'm breathing it in, or I'm embodying it now. And that's a really different experience as well. I don't know, are others of you having a similar experience, like with what we're sharing with each other?
James has his hand.
Oh yeah, James.
Yeah, I suppose based on what Jackie said, especially at the start of what she was saying there, in a sense, I suppose where the words that I chose, I think where the compassion and empathy came from is the part of the observing, as Jackie was on about. We have the time now to observe what's going on around us, and well, I've always been a bit of an observer that way. But and the vision that kind of pushes for vision then, and which then pushes for reflection, or pushes on reflection, which pushes for a vision, which is what I found with Jamin's and this platform, and the like-minded people that I've gotten to know on these platforms and everything else. And I suppose the spiritual side of it, in essence, is the Jackie's side of it. And this particular conversations now that we're having with the Divine Feminine and everything else. So if I was to put one word on all five, I would say I'm feeling heartened. Would be about the best way for it. I'm heartened in the sense that I see that, you know, I see that where it's not all bad. Like I know it is, and it all seems all bad all around us, and everything's falling into shit and everything. But it's not all bad because we have good people like ourselves, and there's plenty of others out there, and I'm heartened to know that. So that's the way I'm feeling now, I suppose. That would sum up my feelings now, anyway.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a beautiful word, heartened. And the other thing is I feel like a lot of us have been carrying this, who we are now, with us our whole lifetimes, and we couldn't find our tribe. And what I love about what Jamin has created here is that we're a tribe coming together, a tribe of many walks of life, many colors, many ages, many experiences, but we all share this heartenedness, you know, and that's who we're connecting. And so it's like coming home. Like I see my family here. I love all of you, you know, and it's such a beautiful thing. Like I was out there on my own, you know, at least I thought. I was under the illusion that I was all alone, and it was hard, you know, it was challenging, so many challenges, so much, you know, feeling alone and isolated. And then here we are together in our spirit, you know, and we're family, and it's just exciting, and we're building together, right? We're giving each other tools to use together. to make us more resilient, to make us more effective, to make us more in love and loving and creative, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, Jackie.
You know, I just want to piggyback on that because I really see our gatherings as really, this is a sacred space and there's such a connection here. And this is a calling. And I think this is Jamin's heart, Nolan's heart. I think all our hearts had this knowing. And I think as instruments of sound that we are, our hearts were calling out to one another to find that home, to find that space where we could truly be who we are. And I don't think it wasn't until I started maybe in the spring or the summer to the meetings, the collective intelligence meetings, where I found a safe space to explore really who I am. Is this really who I am? And I started realizing that all of these decades of adulthood was trying to find who I knew I was when I was a child and had been taken away from me. And I spent decades trying to remember and trying to figure out where I lost that bit and what it was. What was that bit that was me? And it's in these spaces where I see mirror after mirror after mirror after mirror. I look at every face and they're all reflections of parts of me that I forgot, parts of me that I have yet to explore, parts of me that I'm excited to explore, parts of me that I thought I had healed and I still have work to do, but it's a safe space. And I realized that I spent so much of my life figuring out and pretending and putting all of these roles to see, is this me? Is this me? Am I this? Is this where my talent goes? And this organically stripped all that away. This space with this community stripped all that away. And it was like, you were trying to figure this, trying to figure out, all you have to do is sit here and connect and have a conversation with these people. And all of a sudden you remember who you are. So this is a conduit to me from all our hearts to give ourselves permission and safety to just be ourselves. And I think that's where the beauty is, because all of who we are really just emanates from our heart, from our soul. And talk about collecting and enlightening, like you said earlier about our light. I really reflected on that. And I feel that that has been my journey, is to go and have relationships and collect the light that I was supposed to learn and those droplets and come home and transmute them and come home and become this crystalline, conduit of light. But I also see that when I'm here, that I can reflect that light and we reflect and we charge one another in this beautiful prism. So I just see this as something so divine and something so sacred, so safe, that is a gift. And that's why I scream it from the rooftops. Like, this is a space where we can find one another and support one another in that continued growth.
I'm just going to breathe that one in too, Jackie. You're a deep well. Love you. Would anyone else like to add or contribute?
I want to welcome back Melvin, and feel free to just chime in. We're kind of, the theme right now is, how are you feeling right now? Like in a word or a few words or whatever. And have we heard from Emery also? I'm not sure about that. So anyway,
he spoke about enlightenment.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how's everyone feeling? Do our check-in. I've been working with kids a lot, so we do the check-in all the time and lots of word games and things. So I'm going to stay in that mode. Yeah, Melvin, lovely to see.
Well, I'm struggling with a lot of mixed feelings. And I woke up yesterday morning struggling with these mixed feelings. And I think it was Jackie was talking, and I just have to observe these feelings. I just have to observe them. Don't try to change them. Just observe them. And you really don't even try to analyze them. So that's what I'm doing. I'm dealing with these mixed feelings. And I appreciate this space here, this collective intelligence. And I was reflecting upon, you know, our mainstream culture where the everything is about individualism, me, mine, you know, that I'm the greatest person on this earth, and without me, nothing can happen. And, you know, I'm the center of the universe. And here we talking about collective intelligence, how we all have something to contribute, and it's meaningful, and how we all interconnected and interrelated. So I really appreciate this here space to be in. And hearing my friend Jackie, I've been knowing Jackie, it's been 3 years now or more, but I've seen it, just hearing her is just amazing, her transformation from when we first met, and hearing her stories now. Maybe they were there then, and I wasn't close enough to her to hear them, but wow, it's just amazing, her insights, her awareness, and how she can you know uh, um, elucidate her thoughts. It's amazing, and it's just so fluid. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you so much for your work.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you, my dear friend.
Well spoken. Yeah, we're really glad you're here, and I'm glad everyone is here sharing our stories and where we're at and who we are and what we're co-creating together.
I'll share some more, and the reason I get so choked up is because when I think of the questions you've posed, you know, what was I doing before the lockdown? And by the way, for anybody who's not sure about the questions that Melissa asked us and the thoughts that she wanted us to delve into, I posted them in the chat.
Thank you, Miles.
So, oh, you're very welcome. So I've been working on something for quite a few years, as Jamin and Melissa know, and it's very much tied to reconciliation here in Canada with the First Nations. And I last year on January 19th, I wrote a letter because it's been an ongoing process that I've been involved with, outreach to my Indigenous neighbors. And a year ago, I wrote a letter to Chief Lee Crowchild. They actually, in the Tsuut'ina language, they don't use the word chief. It's Exakshiji, if I'm saying that correctly, probably not. But he was the chief, shall we say. So what it's relating to is this call to reconciliation, which is what we have to do, as Melissa said yesterday in talking with Dr. Rao, this reconciliation and healing for the trauma that still exists from genocide. So this is why I find it very, very emotional when she talked about the shawl, because an elder put a shawl around me at an event and gave me some instruction. But Chief Crowchild, he said in one of the numerous events, meetings that I've attended, these are some of the questions he's asked. And, you know, the way we've treated the Indigenous people is it's all goes hand in hand with the way we've treated Mother Earth. So the first question that was presented to a group was, number one, are we willing to continue to listen to Indigenous voices and educate ourselves about the fullness of our history and what is needed for reconciliation? Number 2, are we willing to continue to build relationships with Indigenous people in our area? And number 3, based on what we hear and rooted in the relationships we develop, are we willing to act to continue to advance reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people? Now, again, this goes hand in hand with what we've done to the planet, you know, because we came across the Atlantic in 1492 and we brought animal abuse, we brought zoonotic disease to a people who had virtually no diseases because they did not abuse animals. So I'll wrap up because I don't want to invite any comments or whatever, but my challenge is related to these next 3 questions. And this is where your questions that you've posed to us today really strike home at me, because it's about action. It's like, okay, so you know the situation, now what are you going to do about it? So the first challenge that Chief Crowchild said is, have you done enough apologizing without a plan?
Wow.
Are you ready to move forward? And what are you ready to do?
Mm-hmm.
So, and kind of hand in hand goes with that is, you know, have you shed enough tears? And obviously I'm still at times shedding tears. But, you know, as the song is, you know, tears are not enough. It's like action, move forward, tell the truth. And there's a lot of truth telling that needs to be said related to so many issues of inequity and lack of justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Miles. I watched a Canadian film recently. I think it's called Little Indian. I'll check that out. It's on Netflix. And it followed the story of a child who was forcibly removed by the Canadian government and put into a boarding school or residential school, as they call them. And he became a hockey champion. And hockey saved him, basically. Playing hockey helped him get through all those years of being with the nuns and the priests in this boarding school. And the Native children suffered huge abuse, from everything from pedophilia to beatings, starvation. A lot of them died. Thousands of children died or committed suicide. It's a very harrowing tale, true tale, but it's really to raise the awareness around what has happened around the genocide that needs to be addressed still. And I am aware that the Canadian government did ask First Nations for forgiveness for the way they were treated. I like this question though of, are you willing to ask for forgiveness without a plan? You know, like, is there an agenda behind whatever state of this awareness or new beingness? Is there an agenda behind it, or is it pure? Is the intent pure? And I think that's something, you know, the other thing that was coming to me when you were talking about the shawl is that we're all traumatized, all of us. And what could be really interesting is for all of us to put on a shawl ourselves, to inshawl ourselves, you know, or to create a shawl. And then what would we put on the shawl? What is our story? What are we connecting with? You know, what's our new story, not our old story? So I think we have to move through the trauma. We've got to heal ourselves and forgive what we have done and forgive what the world has done to us, which I think, Jackie, you're a really good example of that. Like, you've moved through your trauma and you've really done the work, on yourself in order to use the dysfunctionality of your life and the hurt of your life and the trauma of your life, to use it as a tool for change.
You know what? I think there was two components that helped me do that. One was my work with children and really understanding how, where you were talking about trauma and collective trauma, how we are all just actors and characters in this play, reliving this trauma that we're all unaware of, but we're all affected by and living with and living through. And so to understand how children develop and how the minds of children develop and how trauma affects us, and it's all in childhood. And then being able to be compassionate enough to have that awareness, and then to look at adults as these traumatized, injured children that are walking adaptations to how do I function as an adult in life when I've not been provided the tools or the guidance or the learning that requires me to function in this dysfunction. So then we are not given the proper tools. So most of us walk around in our adult lives thinking we're adults, but we're just children living adult lives without the tools. And most of us are running away from, we know what we don't want to repeat. We know what we don't want to redo. We know what took me down the wrong path, but we don't know what to do. We don't know what's the right thing because there was nobody there. So I think that really was that compassion that I started having for other people, then I could have for myself and stop judging myself. And then it was that remembering of being courageous enough to go back to childhood and saying, it wasn't all that, there were some pearls in there. So let's navigate through the pain and compassionately release the pain and forgive the pain by understanding, and then get back to the pearls. And I realized as a kid, I always knew that I would find myself through being a mother. I just knew that intuitively as a little girl, as a little girl. I fell in love with the idea of motherhood and being a mom. And I remembered a poem that we grew up very tight, in the project, very, very tight. But my mom always had like encyclopedias around. We always learned if we were bored because we couldn't go outside and play as much. So we were always reading. I was always reading encyclopedias. And then there was a collection of poetry that my mom had. And I remember reading one poem that I would read over and over and over and over again because it's just so beautiful. And it was about being a mom, the gift of being a mom. And that was the guidance that I took as a child, the only guidance I had of what to do as opposed to what not to do. And I held on to that all through childhood. What to do? What's the mom I want to be? What kind of mom I want to be? Well, what's really motherhood? Because I saw that my mother could not mother because she was not healthily mothered. And that generational trauma was passed down. And so I had to figure out if I'm going to take that with me or what kind of a mom I'm going to be, and had to explore all that. So it was in that both that just this awareness came, and that compassion for myself and that compassion for other people, to find myself and have the courage to say, okay, without judgment and letting go of the shoulds and the coulds, why am I here? Why is this showing up? I was here for a reason, and I am not a victim. So how do I understand? How do I grow? How do I learn? Because it's here. No matter how much I cry, no matter how much I fight, no matter how much I don't deserve this, it's already here. So I can keep resisting it, or I can just meet it where it is, grow from it, learn from it, and expand myself, and then go back and help. And that was each step. And I have gone through so much and have lost so many relationships growing. But now I can look back and appreciate, for the limited time that they were in my life, they taught me so much and they helped me so much. So I can release those experiences without judgment, thank them for the opportunity that I've learned and grow, but without judgment, I can release. And I think that's what's helped me the most, is I can go back on those experiences without judging, like, you hurt me, you hurt me. No. There was no you. I was living an experience, you were living an experience. Those two came together, and there was this chemistry here that I needed to resolve. There was something in me that was contributing to this in an unhealthy way, and I needed to figure that out, and so that I could heal and remove myself and release you to your path and your journey. So it was all of those components to really get me where I'm here, which is to answer your question of before and after. Before I was doing the work, and it was very intellectual for me. It was very, well, you know this, you should be doing this. Now it's, my gosh, what can I do? How can I help? I don't know, just show me and I'll say yes, because people need. So now it's not coming intellectual, now it's coming from intuition. Now it's coming from experience, married through my experience, married through my knowledge, to just act. Act with intention, act with love, without judgment, without any expectations. You don't want my help? That's fine. You don't take my help. Next. Do you want help? Sure. And I'm not going to be mad at you. That's your journey. That's your path. You know, and I honor that maybe our energies don't resonate. No judgment. Hopefully someone else's energy will resonate with yours. Maybe that message is better with that person. I'm not for everyone, and that's okay. You know, so it was kind of all of those experiences that got me to where I could see it without judgment. And it's the hardest journey. That's truly the hero's journey. It's the hardest journey you can take, but it's the most fruitful one, because you really get to know yourself. And when they say love yourself, it's not loving yourself that's all these roles and my accomplishments and what I've done. It's, you know, I'm my own best friend. I kind of like me now. And it's kind of nice to kind of like me.
Just gonna breathe that one in too, Jackie.
Jackie, that was beautiful. I'm going to go on that note so I can duck out and feed my family. Bye, everyone. I'll check in tomorrow morning, which is your night.
Great to see you, Lauren. And Charlie just popped in.
Hi,
Just
Charlie.
FYI. Welcome, Charlie. One day he's in Switzerland, another day he's in the Bahamas. So where's Charlie now? And welcome, Alexis. Welcome, everyone. We're in the middle of the Divine Feminine segment. We're halfway through a 2-hour Divine Feminine led by Melissa, Jackie, and Maida, and really all of our wonderful women here. So please carry on and welcome everyone.
So
just a quick response, if I may, for Jackie.
absolutely.
So, and Melissa's mentioned this too, and our mother is our first friend. And as Melissa said the other day or last week, you know, it's about being a friend. And I think us men particularly need to be constantly reminded about what being a friend is. I know I do. And, you know, Jackie and Jessica, you know, when I was with the Climate Healers, they did an mediation. And it just took me right back. I shared this story of, and I still vividly remember it with much shame, I guess, or guilt still, but an incident in the sandbox where I pushed my friend over to take the shovel he had, and he ended up having to go get stitches. But anyway, and then the mothers intervened. Like I thought, oh, I've lost my best friend because I was so mean. But then the mothers intervened and they patched things up and we were friends again. And I just think that's the role of a mother. They just know these things somehow, you know, and that's why we need them. And we need them still. And that's what's missing, I think, in our governance. The First Nations, as Melissa was talking about yesterday, and I've relayed some of the readings that I've done. First Nations societies, pretty much generally speaking, recognize the authority of the clan mother to call out misconduct.
Thank you, Miles. I wanted to come back to what you were saying, Jackie, and then I want to jump forward to what you were saying, Miles, as well. So we'll jump around a bit here. I believe that all of us come here with a story to live. I think it's prescribed. I think there are certain places where we have choices and we get to work on ourselves within this storyline that we're given. And I think that all the characters are there, you know, who we're going to interact with to enact this story. And I think the themes are there. Those things like you were talking about, your connection to being a mother and to working with children, like that theme was already seated within you. And the same way that my artist theme was seated there within me. And so if you look back across your life, and some of us are older, so we have a longer trajectory to look back over, but you can really see the themes. You know, I can see when a book popped up, or a meeting, or an archaeological dig, or something turned up that said, yeah, remember that you're here to do this, or you're here to be that, or here to explore that. And so I think that the way I see it is, I'm not a victim of my life. It's a journey, and I came here to have this journey. And I also think that if we wake up into understanding that journey that we came here to experience, there's already a knowing, there's already an understanding of that. And once you learn that, then that becomes a powerful tool again. I guess we're in the toolbox today a lot. So then I also want to jump to what you're saying, Miles. And the question I grapple with is within trauma, and I can't remember if it was Emerson, Waldo Emerson, who wrote this. He said that the only peoples who are exempt from having to be held accountable for the actions they take due to the trauma that they have been through are Native Americans. And I'm just wondering, as a species, humanity, because we're all traumatized in some way, how do we heal that trauma, you know, collectively? Like, how do we, is that our job to help a nation heal their trauma? Or do they need to heal it within their own tribe? Or are we all becoming one collective tribe, and we're all working together now to heal this trauma that humanity has been through? Yeah, Stephanie, love to hear from you.
Hi, thanks. I hope I stay on point, and I'm sorry if I don't, but it kind of relates to what everybody's saying, as well as going back a little bit, talking about words. And I did the exercise as you were saying it, and then a realization came upon me. Is like, actually, there's a word I'm revisiting that I was dealing with in my past, and now I find myself contemplating and reflecting on a lot, which is codependency. And codependency was introduced to me by a counselor years ago. And codependency initially was brought into language to kind of represent somebody who's affected by, or should I say affected themselves by, dealing with somebody who has substance abuse. But now there's a lot of examples of codependency, and there's a lot of ways of describing it. And I'm reading a book at the moment, which I've read before, Melody Beattie, and there's exercises as well as explaining it. But one of the exercises is, how would you explain codependency? And how I would explain it is wanting control of anything that is out of our control in order to be our ideal. And I think this correlates with a lot of stuff, because I think people see control or wanting control as something negative automatically, and I don't think it is. And I think it correlates with a need and a want as well. So it's kind of like, for me, I want to jump around now, I'm sorry. Like, also, coming from trauma and traumatic past, and at a very young age, having that awareness, as Jackie was talking about, that actually I'm not a victim, and I'm so grateful and and I bow down to the bad things that happen because I am who I am because of them, and that's another book. But I think I'm trying to remind myself, because I was there before, and I know I'm ever learning. I'm just learning to stop the stick from hitting my head. I don't know if you know that story, but I'm learning to stop the pain, but I know I will be forever learning. But I'm just trying to remind myself that, first of all, am I trying to take control? Again, wanting something that I don't have control of in any sense of the word, or is it something I need? So, and this can go back into your childhood. Like, you might want the approval of your mother, but you don't need it. And some people don't have a friendly mother, just to put that out there. And I was learning these things. So it's what it's about. And I think Mervyn, if I get that correct, actually said this as well earlier, is what I need to remind myself is that when I'm feeling emotionally down, why am I feeling down? And is it a need or is it a want? And if it's mostly a want, also have faith that the need is basically what I call the need is everything happens for a reason. So what needs to be is going to happen. So if it's just a want, then to let go of that control, because what needs to happen is going to happen around me anyway. And it's not to beat myself up for getting lost again, or not remembering these things, or not revisiting these feelings or practicing them. It's just to be aware, like catch yourself, hear your thoughts, and then say, okay, sit with that. That's fine. That's how I'm feeling. Just note that. And again, it doesn't matter how bad, how good, how indifferent, because trust me, like, I have full faith because of my experiences that no matter how bad, this is good. This can be positive. This will be positive. That everything happens for a reason. As I said, that's the need. So again, I need to practice what I preach. And it's just a lot of reminding myself that, oh, I'm codependent. I'm codependent on the world. I'm codependent on my fellow people to feel and think the way I want them to feel and act how I want them to act, and everybody to just wake up and do what they need to do, but I can't control that. And that's codependency. So it's just another word that I suppose I'm just thinking, actually, no, that's my word. Never mind those R words, that's my word today. Yeah.
Just
Oh
gonna.
my gosh, Stephanie, she's amazing, beautiful, beautiful. I'm tearing.
Yeah. Before I call on anyone else who has their hand up, which I will do, I just wanted to say that I know we're all in conversation, and that everything we're sharing is bringing up things that we often want to feed back to someone else. But what I just wanted to propose this to all of you, and you can either do that or that, is after someone has spoken, what do you think about if we ask them, would they like us to reflect, to give advice, or to ask a question? So that we're not imposing, something on them. Yeah, okay, we could try it out and see how that works. So I guess, Stephanie, I'll ask you if you don't mind being the first victim. Sorry, that's just a joke. The beautiful guinea girl, not pig. Would you like us to reflect back to you? Would you like us to give you advice? Well, probably that's not appropriate here. Or would you like us to ask you more questions about what you just explained?
I suppose a comment or a question, if anybody feels like it. If there's none, that's fine.
Thank you. Miles.
Yeah, I know every time a person makes a statement, there's always going to be exceptions, and I know from having listened to James telling his story on one of the recordings. I wasn't present at the time, but I watched the recording, and he shared about his becoming a young father at age 22 and raising Stephanie. And I shared that with my wife, and I said, this James, he's amazing. Yeah, he stepped in to mediate between two stubborn guys that were arguing about one thing and another, and some names calling back and forth, and James is trying to mediate. And I thought, wow, this guy's great. And then I shared to my wife Gina. I said, you know, he was a father and didn't have a wife to help him. And can you imagine if I had to raise our kids? And she said, without you. And she said, yeah, believe me, I've worried about that, you know, because so obviously there's a nurturing side in men too, you know, and what I was saying were sort of generalizations about the masculine and the feminine. But, you know, James is an example of an amazing man who, in spite of adversity, rose to the call of duty. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, I'd like to just comment back on that. Is that okay? Yeah, like I think a lot of people think, you know, your biological mother, but you can have a mother figure in anything, masculine or female. And my dad, I suppose, took that role, but also to just give credit to my dad, that one thing that I was very aware of at a young age, and I still carry and will definitely try to carry on. I try to do it with my younger brothers and sisters, and if I ever have children, I'll try to do the same thing, is instill the values of, like, you know, the meaning and happiness in life that beyond materials. Like, we didn't have a lot of money or anything like that, but yet, like, I knew that this is what it's really about. Like, you know, I caught on to that at a very young age because of the teachings my dad taught me, like, you know, and always taught me, like, you know, to be an individual as well. And I had such a contrasting, because like I also lived with my mother at times, and such a different world, but like I was so lucky for that. But my dad definitely had the just stripped it bare down to the person, to the soul, and this is what life's about. And they're the kind of conversations we grew up on. And I know it's kind of good to have a parent, but a friend as well. Like, you know, I've always had that relationship with my dad where I can just sit down and tell him anything good, bad, or indifferent, and I have no problem because I have that just relationship with him. And if it's good, bad, or indifferent, we'll talk it out, like, you know. And I know that's a rarity. I see it all the time, like, you know. So that is definitely one thing that money can't buy, or no status can give you, like, you know. So it's like, it's just to give credit to him.
I believe that's what you call a soul contract. That he really came here as your mentor and guardian. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. I have that with my daughter, actually, you know, so I feel very blessed. Yeah, Myra, you've had your hand up for such a long time, love. Sorry to keep you waiting.
Yes, I did. I wanted to mention other things, but I already forgot. I did want to comment from my own experience, that yes, sometimes the persons that have been a path for us to come to this world are not always motherly, are not always fatherly. I think it's okay to remember every experience, but it's also very important to keep ourselves in the present and to acknowledge that our mothers, our fathers, our brothers, everything and everyone becomes a guru in our life. Even a rock becomes a great master. If all of a sudden we were walking and we tripped, well, we have to acknowledge what we were doing. That that rock was there and we tripped and we probably fell. So what do we have to acknowledge? Well, maybe putting more attention, maybe being more in a mindfulness state of mind. So once we acknowledge that every single experience in our life becomes a master, that's when we start that journey of loving ourselves, and recognizing us, that we've chosen every experience to be a better better humans, to be in that light side. And when we learn from the experience, because in reality, they're all opportunities for us to self-grow. There's gonna be people that are still going to be not in the same dimension. There's people that are going to be maybe in the male side, more intellectual. A lot of people may be more narcissistic. And we have to realize that we are going to be finding this type of characters through the path of our lives. But when we know who we are, who we truly are, and we have overcome every obstacle and we have learned from all those experiences, we don't let it get to us as much as it used to. We just learn that they have come to our lives for us to learn something that we still haven't healed, like Jackie said, and just learn from that. What do I have to heal? How come it still hurts me a little bit? How come that person still made me cry and still got me into those emotions? What do I have to learn? Well, I have to learn to let it go. Go hug a tree, go for a walk, listen to music. Just let it go. Yes, allow your body to experience those emotions of hurting, but don't let it hurt too much. A person that I know told me once, it's okay to cry. Cry, but don't cry too much. Because then when we cry, our soul, it makes this kind of like swollen. It gets swollen of crying too much. And everything that swells up needs attention. So allow yourself to express happiness, sadness, but don't express it too much, because even when we're too happy, we automatically jump into the other extreme. So just wanted to share that. And I have a question for Stephanie. I see that you have guitars in your background. I wanted to know if you play the guitar and if you sing, if you can join us with a little bit of your music.
I wish I could. That's my partner Kevin's little collection there, part of it. He's a musician. No, I can't sing, or, well, I can't sing well, should I say. But I wish I could play.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Maida, because and Miles too, about the mothering. I think I feel so grateful and blessed that in this lifetime that I get to experience the divine feminine in the divine feminine body. But the divine feminine is within us all. I mean, so we know neurologically that fathers, when they are in a position where they're taking on more maternal roles, that their neurotransmitters change. Their brain starts functioning and mimicking like the brains of mothers. Dopamine, serotonin, all of those affect when it's the role. It's actually our behavior. It's actually our mindset. If we see ourselves in that maternal role where we are connecting with our children, where we feel like we are in a role of caretaker, nurturer, teacher, guide, it is that role, again, that story that we tell ourselves. When we adapt that story for ourselves, then our brain starts to change and to adapt to that story. And then that spreads throughout our body, and we start living that serotonin, that dopamine. We start living that nurturing feeling experience. And I love watching, like that. My favorite thing is on Halloween, when it goes viral, where all the dads are dressed up with their kids going trick-or-treating, and like you see the dads like mermaids, and like, you know, like, to me that's my favorite, because that is truly just, look, I'm humble, I'm a dad, what makes my kid happy? You know, that makes me happy. And I've said before, and I write about how I think the plague on childhood now really is, and the most painful one, is there's this plague of malignant narcissism in our mothers. There's this separation in our mothers that, especially for at least my experience and my communities that I serve, there is this needing to survive in our mothers that has created almost like a malignant masculine way of functioning. And then we imbue that in our parenting. And so children are not only confused because they're not getting what they perceive neurologically, biologically as what mothering should be, but they're also getting these mixed messages from these moms that are always in survival and always a reactionary and are not performing the role of what children, again, expect when they come out. And we also have to remember, and the last point is that, especially for humans, our brains also develop outside of the womb. We're not finished developing. That's external gestation. If we continue to develop, our brain would be too big to pass through the canal. So that first year, our brains, we're still so fragile and so helpless. That's because that's the external gestation. We're still developing. So the parenting that goes into that developing brain of that infant has a huge effect on who we are as adults. So we have to think about what was going on during that last trimester that that mother was expecting, what was going on that first year. Her feelings, her emotions, her choices, her environment is being imbued into the brain of the child. So I think that collective trauma is, we have a responsibility externally to do our work and contribute, right, to the ethers, contribute as evolved beings. But I also think is that healing comes from understanding and that compassion that our mothers and our fathers could only do the best from what they had, what they've received. They did the best that they could based on what they could do. And I think that understanding gives us that compassion that we can look at systems and we can look at history the same way. And it brings us back to the present now. What do I do with that knowledge now? What do I do with that now without, again, judgment, expectations, nothing. It just is, now I know, and what do I do with it today? And I think that's how we accelerate that question where you were saying with that acknowledgement on the whole of that collective trauma. Truth has to be shared. Even as children, like with my children, I don't hold secrets. I don't share everything, but I don't have secrets in my home because to me that is so detrimental to children to have secrets. You know, there's things that we judge whether or not discernment, whether or not we share, but the secrets, and I think that's what's keeping this trauma in place, is not acknowledging the truth, not validating the truth and the history of what has been. How can we heal? If you can't look at me and say, you did this, I'm accountable, I did it, I am sorry.
Right. Miles, you had your hand up earlier. Did you say what you wanted to say, or feel free?
Yeah, I pretty much said what I wanted to say, that, you know, what I said about motherhood and Jackie has so eloquently explained to us, you know, there's a feminine in the man as well that needs to be nurtured and acknowledged and shared, you know, because we tend to be the ones that are causing the most violence. It's a proven fact by sociologists, particularly by young men. Testosterone leads to aggressive behavior. So yeah, that's all I wanted to just share. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Miles. And welcome, Jubilee. Great to see you.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, we're got half an hour more of a 2-hour segment on the divine feminine, and then we'll shift gears to Dr. Sailesh Rao. And the ladies are leading this. It just happens to be my turn to speak. So I just wanted to share, and I don't really know that I have a point. But one of the beautiful things is I feel so well held here in this wonderful, safe space of the divine feminine that I just feel safe to share and then just put it out there. And so I just wanted to share a bit about my own childhood and journey. So my parents separated when I was 3.5. I have an older brother, 1.5 years older. And it was really hard on us because we were bouncing from home to home and parent to parent and getting two totally different perspectives on the world. And so that was really hard. And then things got 10 times harder when my mom left and just went off on this journey to India, and she was gone for months. And I was 5.5, and I just felt like I had lost my mom. I mean, she was just gone. She might as well have been on another planet. And I really kind of shut down emotionally. And, you know, for the next, you know, period of time, months into years, my mom came back, but, you know, she was sort of in and out of our lives, and, you know, we'd see her every other weekend or stuff like that. And so I grew up in a world that was really my dad's world. And I had my dad and my brother, and so we're just like, you know, 3 males in this household. And so I just got really steeped in this male perspective and my dad's perspective. And he did as best a job as he could, I am convinced. And I'm so grateful to my dad. And over the years, as a kid growing up, I was aware of like trying to earn my mom's love. Like I had to earn it, whether through school, getting good grades, sports, whatever. And finally, when I was 19 years old, and I was in my sophomore year in college, and I realized what was going on. And I got so angry that I felt like I had to earn, it wasn't just my mom's love, also my dad's and everyone else's. And I just got so angry. I just like quit studying. And I just said, you know, forget it. I'm going to figure out, well, I was just so angry. I just kind of steeped in that anger for a while. And it was actually through, I got a job working with children, like day camp counselor sort of thing. And it was through working with children that my heart started to heal. And I started to, you know, kind of grow up. And, you know, I realized, hey, I want to be a parent myself one day, you know, and have a family and all this. And so I started to have a new vision for what my life could be. And I grew to forgive my parents, and it was kind of in stages. And part of that was confronting them. And then part of it was therapy and whatnot. And anyway, I just wanted to share a little bit about my journey. I've got lots more to share over time, but just wanted to put that out there and share with y'all. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Myra has something to say.
Oh yeah. Myra, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to share that definitely, with no doubt, whatever our experience was when we were children, and it seems like we all have a similarity, but we learned how to love the outside, and how to almost feel like we're needy persons of love, or we were. And I think that is something that we have to recognize within this new age, I guess, that we have to teach our kids how to love themselves and how to not have expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Teach them how to learn how to survive in a very difficult society, and how to not be expecting absolutely nothing, because always expecting, it hurts, because what we were expecting, it ended up that it wasn't the way we were believing that it should have been, and it hurts. We have to teach our children how to find their love within themselves and how to stay centered. It's essential, and it's our responsibility as a divine feminine. It doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman. It's that divine feminine to embrace it and to definitely allow our kids to experience that. Because likewise, like Jamin, I've always tried to be the best in school. My mom had a dream of being a model, and you know what? And I took over her dream. I did modeling for 3 years, and it wasn't me. It wasn't me. It was me trying to live her dream. And at the end, I had an expectation that it was going to make my parents happy. And it didn't, because they weren't even there in my runway modeling events. So it's hard. It's hard, but we have to acknowledge also that it wasn't easy for them also. This is the way they were programmed. This is the way, I'm pretty sure their parents give them the best of them, and it was only the best they knew. So it's not even their fault either. And this is why we're here, because we are experiencing this, I'm going to say maybe this consciousness that has to be implemented in our kids. And this is why we're healers by nature and into that divine feminine. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Myra. That was beautifully put. I just want to open up another thing to ponder that's being raised in my soul from this conversation. So my parcours, my pathway, was that I had a non-present mother and father, which I loved when I was a kid, because I got to do whatever I wanted to. I didn't have to even go to school if I didn't want to. So it was totally self-motivational, taught me self-resilience, self-reliance, independence, how to really, I got to be myself. Nobody said you have to go and study law, or you have to do this, you have to do that. It's not till much later in my life that I realized that that might be dysfunctional. And it became a burden for me. And I started carrying it as trauma by looking at other people's lives. So it was kind of through a comparison thing. But when I was younger, I realized it was all right and perfect. That I knew without knowing. But then I imposed on myself this idea of it being a burden or a trauma or dysfunctional or whatever I wanted to call it that day. And then I had to work through that to come out the other side to realize again that it was all right and perfect, and that those parents were the right and perfect ones for me in order to develop my inner skill set and awareness of self and self-love, which Myra, you raised. And that they not only did they do the best they could do, they did a right and perfect job, actually, for me. And then what it brings me into, or brought me into questioning and still does, is more like we're no longer just individuals. We're a hive now. We're a hive of life. And how do we work together to create well-being and balance for all? Our relationship to self, our relationship to family, our relationship to neighbors, to friends, to community, to strangers, to Mother Earth, to all species. And what does that look like? What does that feel like? What does that smell like? What does that sound like? What is that? And from my experience living with First Nations, they do work as a community, a family, a hive, where their traditions help them to function in a way that is about the well-being of the all, the well-being of the whole family, the whole group, and their connection to nature, their connection to Mother Earth. So whatever they sing, they practice, they create, it's not about self-expression like we do in the Occidental world or the white world, sorry to call it that, but I'm just going to say it like that, this colonizer community world. It's about their connection to Mother Earth. So on their blankets, they wear the bear, the orca, the wolf. Their totem poles carry their stories. And again, they're about their clans, their connection to the beaver, to the eagle, to the raven. They're telling stories, and those stories are made out of wood and reeds and wool and things that don't hurt the earth, things that come from the earth and go back to the earth. There's no idea of possession, of ownership. They say we're all just passing through. We're all just passing through. We're here for a brief moment and then we're gone again. So I just wanted to raise that to ponder, like, because I think we are all working together with life around us and the universal creative impulse, spirit, God, whatever you care to call it, on creating, on being the new story, not just creating the story, because I don't want us to be outside it, being this new story. And that's what I love about this conversation this morning, is we're being together, being this new story. And we're talking about our past, we're in our present, and we're just going back to these questions and that we started the conversation with, right? The 5 themes. How do you connect the 5 states of being to your old self, your old work, and now imagine them for a new world? Yeah, any thoughts there or reflections or other other things you'd like to bring into the conversation? We have about 15 more minutes before Sailesh comes on.
Thank you, Melissa. I did wanted to share really quick. I put a link on the chat for you guys to see it individually, or if we want to see it here. It's only about 15-20 minutes long. And it talks about a neurosurgeon that she had a stroke and her male side, her left side of her brain was shut down for a few hours, and she let her divine feminine out, discovering, and it's a neurosurgeon, so just she studies the brain and knowing that how it is to be on that side and to just allow that side to function is very interesting. It made me cry when I saw it. It was recommended in one of my classes with Guru Lucy, and it's beautiful.
Miles, you're on.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. And I'd like to take what I'm going to say back to a question you asked earlier, and that is, so are people who've been abused, have been the subject of injustice, responsible for their own health, their own recovery of mental health? And then what is our role? Because, for example, a lot of people will say, well, I've never been racist. It wasn't me that, took the lands from First Nations, or, I wasn't around when slaves were brought from other nations to North America. Nobody's blaming an individual who's here today necessarily for those things, but the systemic issues still exist. So speaking from this side of the border in Canada, there's still systemic racism in our governance. There's still what is called the Indian Act. And so what its obligation is for me as a traveler, a settler, a white person, whatever, is to be a friend. And I've really started to appreciate what you were just saying, Melissa, about their worldview is so different than what we've established, what we brought over here. The concept of commodification of everything, that we can own Mother Earth, that animals are here just for us to, exploit and abuse. And so consequently, the karma of this abuse I'd say whatever you want to call source, God, creator, we do have to have a genuine fear of source, creator, God, because we won't get away with these injustices, right? So I'm actually, benefiting from everything you have all said today and past, and I'm now trying to integrate it and do it such that it's not about me. I just give all attribution to everybody else, and I'm just a bit of gray matter that's kind of trying to put it together. So I've actually established that I have to put myself in third place and just serve, and eventually, yes, we'll create a new world by just serving others. And although I was unemployed 5 years ago, I'm anxious to make money, like everybody wants to in a way. I do realize I have to just serve, and hopefully I'm confident it'll all play out. And as Dr. Ra's going to come in and share again the concept of the holo ahimsa persons that we should be, that will happen just by service, and it'll come back to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Miles. I believe that the Creator knows every one of us. The Creator knows every hair on our head, every thought we have, every action we take. And what I'm seeing is a forking of the path now, which the Hopi talk about. There's the path of the heart, the red road, and the other path of materialism and destruction. And I'm seeing people choosing now which path they're walking on. Some people, it looked ambiguous for a long time, for many years, but it's becoming really clear to my eyes anyway, that there are people very quickly choosing a very specific path, right or left. And the service you're talking about is the red road, the heart path. I would also like to suggest that yes, service, that's a beautiful thing, but we also have the right to just be. We're so used to always doing, and maybe the just being, being at peace, being in a state of center and balance, if we can hold that space, that we can hold that for the whole world. And maybe that's how you serve. I have a friend, she's in her late 80s, and she's an astrologist, and she's an artist, and she's been serving for a long time. And she said to me, I'm too old now to be out in the world doing, as my service. She said, now I've come to this place where I know I can hold the world through my meditation. And I don't think that's an age thing. I think that some of us will just be called to do that. And I also think we can let go of our preoccupation with thinking we have to be something. Like, I question myself, even my role as an artist. Like, is that appropriate still? Do I need to still be it? Or I've come back to it, but I went through a period where I wondered about that. I said, well, am I most effective here? Is this what I need to be and want to be doing? Is this my purpose? And I got to a place where I was okay with that. And at first it troubled me because I so identified with that thing, that artist thing. But I'm much more than that. Each one of us is way more than what we identify with. And then we can come back around, I think, once we do that self-examination, exploration, to what brings us joy. And my creative making brings me joy. And it's a wonderful thing that the Creator gifted me to use to help lead people to a state of transformation and playfulness and their inner creativity, and to balancing again, to this state of love. And I think it was something that Stephanie said that led me to that thought, that really what we're all looking for is to be loved. That's the bottom issue here. Do we feel loved? Do we not feel loved? And the lesson of learning to love self, and I think it was Myra who raised that. That's the one of the keys, because if we can love ourselves, then we're not codependent, or we're not dependent on somebody else outside ourselves loving ourselves. And years ago, I started to write a fairy tale, and it was kind of autobiographical. And I was living in Belgium at the time, in Brussels, and I was writing it as I was walking through the street, even like wherever I was just writing. And as I went along, things would appear, like I would be looking for a word and a car would drive by me, and on its license plates, it would say, for example, magique. And that was a word I was looking for. I was like, this is surreal. But at the beginning of the story, there's a park called the Bois de Boulogne, and it runs into the city of Brussels. And there are these two gatehouses. And I imagine in the old days, you'd have to pass through and get permission to go into the park. Now there's no one there. But I was imagining that on your path to self-discovery, you'd have to go to the gatekeeper. And you would go into the little gatehouse. And in that gatehouse were hundreds of thousands of little vials of perfume. And they contained every essence imaginable. And you had to find what your essence was before you could move on. And you could pick more than one, but once that you found your essence, then you could carry on, you could enter the city. And the whole journey in this story was one of self-discovery and self-love. And my mother was one of the characters, because she's from an older generation where she always looked outside of herself for something to make her feel good, feel happy. She could never find it within herself. And I know all of you probably have experienced this, where we blame others, like, oh, if only I'd married someone else, I would have been happy. My life would have been better if only I had gone to New York to become a dancer, or whatever fantasy, right? And so my story was really about discovering your essence of what you're all about, and finding that inside your core being is where you find your happiness, and not outside of self. So I will just end on that note. We have a few more minutes, so anyone who'd like to add comments, or Jackie, if you have more. Hi, Lauren, welcome back. Welcome, Joyce. Please jump in.
I'd like to just add to what you were saying to close off, that I feel like the era that we're in, not only is it an awakening, because we are waking out of the illusion that the program and conditioning that successfully has been guiding our behaviors and our choices as humanity. But the way I see, especially for my children, and I see all the world on my children, but I see my job as a mother, for the next generation, is to prevent the forgetting, to maintain that remembering of our divinity, of who we are when we come here, of that discovery of that path, is to get in the way and interfere with the programming and the conditioning, and to allow the children of the world to truly manifest and actualize who it is that they were born knowing who they are. And that journey of those obstacles is our job to help them navigate that. And I have two sons. I had three, but I have two sons that just turned 18, and truly, like, it is such a pleasure to get to know them as adults. Like, it is truly an honor and a pleasure to experience this transition from childhood to adulthood, to get to know them and get to know who they are, and get to know what pearls of wisdom they're bringing from childhood into adulthood, and what things that, like, thanks, Mom, we're leaving that behind. Thank you for the experience, but not for me. And to say, okay, no judgment, great, and just to discover who they're going to be, and to be their friends, and honor that journey, and learn about myself, just watching them grow. I think we do that for all the children. It really does help us remember our own divinity and our own innocence. and watch them and not see it as at naivete, but see it as purity and see it as God just in existence right now through them. And then we remember that divinity of ourselves. So it is my job, I see, is to maintain that integrity of who the children are and do not let them forget.
Beautiful. I'd love to read what Natalie put in the chat box, if I may. She says, I feel in modern times when we meet a new person, we ask their name, where they live, what they do. Yeah, we all know that one, Natalie, right? What is your title in life? And in recent years, a good friend now, but a stranger then, asked me when he first met me, hi, how are you? Are you happy? That for me was a poignant moment, that we are here existing and my current job title or place didn't matter. Was I happy? Was what I was doing making me happy? Is the path I needed to follow regardless of struggling? That's really well put. And then Charles, you put something, One God Universe by William Burroughs. Do you want to say something about that?
The time is short. I wanted to say something else, but that's a really cool clip. It's a short clip, William Burroughs. And I do want to give a shout out to the great Hal Wilner, who's an amazing producer who passed away this week, I guess, on Tuesday, one day after his 64th birthday. So Hal Wilner, look him up, he's amazing. So I wanted to try to say a lot in a short time. Thank you, Jackie, for your sharing earlier. And I'm sorry for your loss, and I can relate that I had a sister many years ago who didn't make it, and I know what my parents went through. I have some idea of what they went through. But what I wanted to share, excuse me, out of context, but I have good news, which is that I finally today spoke with my mother, who's in New York City, with my father, who has advanced Alzheimer's and Parkinson. He's apparently getting worse, but they're still around. And my mom sounded good. They didn't have phone or internet for like a week, and I couldn't get through, and it was pretty weird. So that was really good news. Just and the context of my talking to my mom is also kind of special, but it was the first time in a long time. So anyway, that's me. Thanks.
Thank you, Charles, for sharing that. And we're going to hold you in that space. Totally. Can I let you?
Yeah.
I'll be right back, guys.
Yeah, go ahead, sweetheart. Yeah, in a couple of minutes, Dr. Sailesh Rao will join. Charles, my mom also has Alzheimer's, dementia, and that's, it was a whole transition. And I was talking about my mom earlier. Now I talk with her on the phone every day for at least a half an hour, sometimes way longer. And I'll take her with me jogging, and I'll just be jogging and talking about whatever. I tell her all about all of you and the block party. In the moment, she's getting it, right? A minute later, she'll have no idea what we talked about a minute ago. But in the moment, she's right there. And it's so cool to just have this healing and being able to be just in the moment and just pure love and connection with my mom. So Alzheimer's can actually be it's
that's beautiful. Sorry, just to tag on there, it's a little bit if meta and funny, that my father's professional career and world-renowned expertise is in Alzheimer and aging and dementia.
Wow.
And you can find the Wikipedia entry that I managed to get published on his 75th birthday, John Paul Blass. So, yeah.
Wow. Mm.
I just want to say before we close, I feel so blessed right now. I feel so connected to everyone. This has been such a beautiful segment, and I feel so safe and so honored that we've all connected and expressed ourselves and been vulnerable. And I just the love is tangible So I just want to say thank you so much. And I look so forward to seeing you all every week. I just love you all.
Thank you, Jackie. Oh my goodness. Well, the block party would not be what it is today without you, and without the Divine Feminine segment that you and Myra and Melissa are doing such a beautiful job creating. I mean, it's bringing the divine matriarchy, as we were talking before about the First Nations. I have close connections with the Lakota First Nation in the Dakotas and beyond, and they, have this, matriarchal council. It's only women, and they call the shots. It's that simple, and the men respect it. And what an amazing civilization that they built and then got largely destroyed, almost decimated, but they're hanging in there. And they're still maintaining their way of life. And it's so inspiring. I traveled with them to Standing Rock and participated. And it was interesting to see how all the different tribes. It was the largest gathering of indigenous peoples in 100 years or something like that at Standing Rock. It was incredible. And there were different tribes that came that did not have a similar matriarchal tradition as the Lakota. It was just really fascinating to see the different tribes coming together and sorting it out. But I am absolutely convinced that the Divine Feminine is the way to go in terms of leading us all, leading humanity. And men definitely have a role to play, but being leader, dictator, patriarch, that is definitely not it. And I think we're all co-discovering and co-creating what that role is. I feel like the Divine Feminine really has it sorted out way more than the masculine. I feel like we're just down in some dark hole, right, Miles? And but we're clawing our way out, and the Divine Feminine is giving us a hand up. And thank you so much. And please continue to lead not just the Divine Feminine segment, but the whole block party. This is something we actually talked about going way back into December. We talked about having essentially like a leadership council that would have a built-in super majority of women. So if there's we got Sailesh coming on, so if we have 10 people on the council, 7 have to be women, for example. So anyway, but I just love the jump we've got on it here. Welcome, Sailesh. We're just wrapping up the segment on the Divine Feminine. It was absolutely amazing. And I think if Jackie and Myra will close it out for us, we can then pass the baton to you, Sailesh. No, that's okay, sweetheart. And Melissa's back. So
okay, I'll just say my closing remarks again. I love you all. Thank you. Thank you for participating. And thank you, all of the men who are so imbuing this space with the Divine Feminine. Thank you so much. Like this space, I'm so grateful.
Yeah. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jamin, for creating this space for all of us to come together. And welcome, Dr. Sailesh Rao. Yay! I love tooting your horn.
All right.